There are two kinds of people in this world. People who like audio and people who like tech. And then there are those people that like both. And okay, I lied, there's more than two kinds of people in this world. These people don't always get what they want unless maybe it's on a massive discount. I'm gonna cut to the chase. If you happen to live in the US, the AKG N400 is currently on sale at $48, and at that price, you should just buy it. You don't even have to watch the rest of the video, just buy it. See ya. But it's not perfect. It comes with a lot of caveats and some quirks that frankly I've never seen anywhere else. Things you might want to know if you're splashing out for the full retail price of $150. But that's okay, you wanted to find out and you've clicked on the exact right video to find out, so let's. Okay, right from the get-go, the first thing that comes to mind is quality. The packaging is just really nice quality, and as a lovely little quirk, I think, and I'm not sure about this, I don't even know if it's coming on camera, but can you see some little marks? It looks like they've spelled AKG in Braille, but I can't read Braille and I couldn't translate this online. I don't actually know if that's true. I hope it is. That's kind of a cool thing, isn't it? Now, inside the case itself, there's two things that come to mind when you see this. One is quality and the other is size. This case is just metal. I mean, the lid is plastic, but the body is actually metal, or at least encased in metal, and that is fantastic. It's got this beautiful metal hinge as well. The whole thing is built like a tank. Unfortunately, it's also sized like one, because this is one of the least pocketable cases I've had the pleasure of using, and that's a little bit of a problem. The earphones inside are similarly large, but actually when you put them in your ear, they don't actually seem that large. But before we get there, here's the first quirk of this device. The left and right earphones in the case are actually swapped around. So your right earphone is in the left spot in the case, and your left earphone is in the right spot on the case. Now, I think the engineers are well aware of the bulk of this device residing outside of your ear, just like the Sony XM4 or the Technics AZ60, but to compensate for that, they've given you silicone wingtips. And these wingtips are not nearly as large as the ones that you get on the Soundcore Liberty 3 Pro, for example. So to my ears, they're actually more comfortable and were more suitable for long-term listening. Although every hour or so, I did have to adjust them just a little bit. Now, when you do take this on a workout, it is an IPX7 rated earphone, so you can work out to your heart's content. But if you go outdoors, bear in mind that wind noise is definitely noticeable. So if you're bicycling at higher speeds, or if it's just a windy day, you're going to hear it, because this doesn't have any wind noise reduction. And the active noise cancelling isn't particularly great either, so more on that in just a minute. Now, as for connectivity, it uses Bluetooth Low Energy, and connectivity starts as soon as you open the lid. That's a nice thing, it pairs pretty quick. However, this is an old 1800s style master-slave sort of relationship, where the right earbud is the master and the left one is the slave. So if you want to use one earbud at a time, it's got to be the right earbud. Other than that, I had no real issue. It only supports SBC and AAC. Unfortunately, it does not support the higher res codecs, but I found connections to be stable up to even 35 to 40 feet. And the only thing that really broke a connection down was having a solid concrete wall between me and my phone. So it's not a problem. Now, the app that comes with it, well, it only works with location services turned on. So if you're trying to save battery, or if you're a little bit finicky about your privacy settings, this may be a bit of an issue for you. Once you've got the app running, it's got a nice clean interface. It's got a home screen that has only one battery level indicator, probably for the right ear, because that's the one that's important. And you've got three options to switch between noise cancelling, talk through, and ambient aware. Now, you can assign that to the gesture control. More on that in a second. Talk through and ambient aware are what you get out of the box. There's no customization. ANC, however, can be customized much in the same way you do for the Technics AZ60. Basically, you sit yourself down in a loud environment and you have a little slider that you move left to right, and you figure out what works best for you, and that's the best ANC you're gonna get. As for how good it is, more on that in just a minute. Now, you've got a tab at the bottom with EQ settings. This has got to be the best EQ I've seen on any app, because it ranges from 32 Hz to 16 kHz, and there's quite a lot of play there. Plus and minus 6 dB is the extent to which you can manipulate the frequencies. Easier said than done, because on a small screen, if you've got thick stubby fingers like mine, it's a little bit hard to do. But hey, at least the option's there, and it looks like you can save as many presets as you want. Now, if you press the top right tab over here, you get a bunch of options. You get play and pause automation, which is in-ear detection. That's always nice to have. You get auto off, which turns off the earbuds after a certain amount of inactivity. And you get Find My Buds. Now, Find My Buds basically sends a loud, high-pitched tone through one of the earbuds, whichever one you choose. But if you're the kind of person that looks for their spectacles while you're still wearing them, just check your ears before going for this because they do get loud. Now finally, we come to the gestures, and this is where AKG has truly outdone themselves, honestly. So you've got gesture controls on both the earbuds. You've got touch controls and they work quite well, they're responsive, no issues there. The problem is, you only have a single gesture on the left and all your gestures are on the right, which is weird because if you look in their menu, there's actually grayed out areas where there are clearly options for adding customization. They just decided not to. It's like they had the intention to, they designed it into the interface, they just decided not to give it to you. Now this could come in a future firmware update, but guys, this is not a new IEM. This has been out since 2020 and it's on sale at 1/3 of its price. So I wouldn't hold my breath for this one. Now what you can change is basically a swipe forward gesture on the left ear and you can toggle that between ambient aware and talk through modes. If you swipe over to the right ear, you see a lot of options. Or so you think until you look closely. You realize that only 3 of the options have drop-down menus. And even then, when you go into the drop-down menu, all you can do is turn them on or off. There's no actual customization. For swipe forward and back, for example, is volume up or down or none. You can either turn it on or off, and all the options are the same. The 3 options that are there aren't really options for customization. Everything else you see here is just to tell you what gesture does what. This is basically a semi-interactive manual. In fact, this whole app's raison d'etre is a little bit questionable. If you think about it, there is a warning for low battery that comes out of these anyway, so you don't need that single battery indicator. ANC and ambient aware and talk through modes, you can set that on the left ear's swipe gesture and you're done with it. You don't need to use the app ever for that. In-ear detection and auto turn off are features that you're probably going to leave on all the time anyway. And the ANC tuning is only useful when you do it the one time you set it up. The gesture control is clearly pointless. The only 2 things the app is useful for is when you've lost your earbuds and you want to find them, or if you want to EQ them. Although again, I will say that EQ, very nice. Now as for the sound quality, well, when it comes to TWS, sound quality includes things like noise cancelling and ambient aware modes should they be available. Ambient aware mode is quite a natural sounding transparency mode with a little bit of a boost to outside sounds. Nothing too much, works pretty well. Talk through does what it says on the tin. It boosts vocal frequencies. Noise cancelling, well, it does work, but it's not the best out there. I'd say if it's only cancelling out the lower frequencies, the Soundcore Liberty 3 Pro does a far more aggressive job of it. And there are other options in the market at the $150-ish price range that do a better job. Having said that, if you're getting it for $48, I don't know anything else that does ANC quite as well. Overall though, noise cancelling exists. Loudness is a thing I want to talk about. This is not something I usually talk about because I think people shouldn't be blasting music into their ears at loud volumes. I think it's better to go for good ANC or good passive noise isolation so you can quiet the world around you and listen to music at reasonable levels and save your hearing for later. However, normally I set my volume at 55 to 60% on most Bluetooth IEMs. It's never been a problem, so I've never talked about it. These though, I had to set it at 70-75% all the time, and it's even worse in loud environments. Add to that the fact that the ANC isn't particularly powerful and the fact that the silicone ear tips that come with it aren't great at passive noise isolation, and you've got a need to boost the volume even more. Now this is mitigated a little bit by using the Comply foam tips that they do provide, but then you're going to have to change them every once in a while because they do disintegrate. Now combine that with the fact that wind noise is definitely a problem and they don't have wind noise reduction, and you can find yourself sometimes in certain situations where you're hearing a little more than your music, perhaps more than you bargained for. Just something to keep in mind. Having said that, if it's not windy or noisy in most situations with ANC on, 75 to 85% volume tended to be pretty normal for everyone. So it is manageable, but you won't get much higher than that. Which brings us to the actual sound quality. How does music sound? I mean, this is AKG. They have a direct relationship with Harman. How does it sound? Well, as expected, they are tuned very closely to the Harman IE target and they do a very good job of it. Now, I don't prefer the Harman target only because for longer listening sessions, I find the highs to be a little bit fatiguing. That's just a personal preference. Having said that, I have to admit, they sound great. The bass sounds nice and punchy without taking over the mix, with a nice amount of sub-bass extension as well. And the mids, those mids, they sound so good. Tracks like Suffer by Stained have an adequate amount of grunginess and grittiness to them. Rage Against the Machine, tracks like Bomb Track and Wake Up sound outstanding with this thing. It's got that level of aggressive attack that the guitars require, and those aggressive male vocals also come across beautifully. On the other hand, if you're listening to something like Joss Stone's High Road, those piercing guitar intros sound gorgeous, just as beautiful as her voice does. The only limiting factor, if I'm being honest, is the fact that it is only SBC and AAC. And between those two codecs, the AAC codec seems to have highs that are not as sharp as those on the SBC and a little more detailed and nuanced as well. So definitely choose AAC over SBC. If you love the Harman curve, I haven't heard anything so nicely and closely tuned to the Harman curve in the Bluetooth IEM world. This is really, really good, and you can't help but wonder, what if they had LDAC support? Now finally, battery life is nothing to write home about. In fact, it's a little bit on the shorter side. It'll last about 4 hours on a single charge with AAC and active noise cancelling on, and that is just a little bit low. There are so many competitors in the market that go for at least 5.5, 6 hours plus with that configuration, and I'd expect more from AKG. But that's what you get. So to take stock of it all, the AKG N400 is a box of quirks and contradictions, and as such, it's been fantastic reviewing it because it's so much fun when these things happen. The case is not ergonomic in that it is not pocketable, but it is solidly built and looks like it's gonna last forever. The earbuds seem bulky, but because of those silicone wingtips, they're actually really comfortable. Wind noise is definitely a bit of an issue, and combine that with an active noise cancelling that isn't the greatest and a volume level that also isn't the greatest, and you've got certain situations, loud, windy situations, where you'll wish you had something that did a little bit better. But in most other situations, it really wasn't too much of a problem. From a sound quality point of view, this thing is outstanding. Its only limiting factor being the lack of codec support. And finally, the gesture controls, they're limited in customizability, but they do work well. Although at the end of the day, battery life is still a little bit of a letdown. So the question then is it worth your money? Well, for $48, absolutely. If only for the sound quality and nothing else, combined with the fact that they're comfortable enough not to be an absolute pain, this is a fantastic value. And if sound quality is the only thing you care about, if you're willing to forego everything else, then even at $150, this makes a very strong case for itself. But if you want more features, more customizability, better noise cancelling, things like that, or multi-point connections, for example, there are definitely options in the market that you should look at, especially at that $150 price range. Now, just a tip, if you want these and you don't live in the US, you can use a freight forward, Stackery, Shop and Ship. There are a bunch of freight forwarders. They will ship it to the freight forwarder and then they'll ship it to your home country. It's going to cost you $20 to $30 more, at which point you might want to consider things like the Sony WF-C500, for example. An IEM that doesn't have any of these features, but it gives you solid battery life, nearly 10 hours if I'm not mistaken. Also SBC and AAC, also really nicely tuned, although very differently tuned than this. I've got an entire review if you're curious about it. I'll link it up here or down in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste.
Okay, you thought I forgot, didn't you? You thought I forgot about the microphone check. Now, this is the microphone check for the AKG N400 in a pretty quiet hotel room, just the air conditioning going, not much else happening, but this is the same thing with some really, really loud cafe sounds now. Active noise cancellation may not be that good, but I think the microphone does a pretty good job of picking my noise out of the crowd. What do you think? Obviously, comment down in the section below. But while you're thinking, you could do a couple of things. You could think of subscribing to the channel, you could like a video, or you can watch this video over here, or then this video over here is pretty good too. Honestly, there's so much to do. Go check the channel out. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.